Whether you're listening in Milton Ulladulla, Sussex Inlet, Kangaroo Valley or Nowra, Stephen has you covered on Shoalhaven's Triple U 104.5 FM.
Yes, that was Prince there with 1999. It's 27 minutes to 6, and as many people around the Shoalhaven take advantage of the warm days, lazing around one of our 100 beaches, it's the best time to find yourself a book and chill out. Well, I'm very pleased to introduce you to a French-based author that actually grew up in Wollongong. Liza Perrat has been living overseas for the last 20 years, but it's released a number of books that are set around the Illawarra. Now, I first discovered Liza with her novel The Silent Kookaburra, and then had the pleasure of diving into another one, The Swooping Magpie, and she joins me now, not all the way from France, but from our northern neighbour, Wollongong. Welcome to Tuesday Drive.
Thanks very much, Steve.
Absolute
Thanks for having me
pleasure.
on your show. It's lovely.
And Happy New Year. I've got to ask, how did you spend it last night?
Well, actually, we just had a few quiet drinks on the balcony and watched the fireworks down here at the harbour. And that was about it, really. Everyone kind of cleared out as soon as the fireworks were over. So that was nice. It was nice and quiet, so we were able to have an early night, like the oldies that we are.
Oh, you're not that old, Lisa, surely. Hey,
it's only a number, isn't it?
That's exactly right. Now, look, before we chat about this book, tell me about your days growing up in the Gong.
Okay, so I grew up in Wollongong in the 70s. So when I wrote The Swooping Magpie and the previous novel, The Silent Kookaburra, it was a bit of a nostalgic trip down memory lane, I think. I used to hang out with my friends at North Beach, Boat Harbour and around Crown Street and several other locations mentioned in the novel, and I have some really lovely memories of that period in my life. You know, we had great fun and, you know, life was just so easy, and I didn't realise how lucky I was, I think, until I moved away. I think although Wollongong was very different then, it was, you know, a far more real blue-collar, simple working class area to the elegant city that it's now become. But still, you know, it was just such a great place to grow up in.
And what actually took you to France?
A boy. What else? It was back in 1988, and I was on a backpacking trip through Thailand, Nepal and India. I was on my way to a midwifery job in Saudi Arabia because I was a midwife back then.
Okay.
And I met this French boy on a bus in Bangkok.
As you do, yes.
So, yes, you do. So we actually lived in Australia for a few years in the beginning. Then we moved back to France 25 years ago. So that was that story, and I never did make it to the job in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, no. I hope you didn't get the sack or anything afterwards.
No, I didn't.
Oh, gosh.
I did manage to give them plenty of notice that I had other plans.
Now, Lisa, this book of yours, I've got to confess, I just chewed through it, The Swooping Magpie. I couldn't put it down.
Oh, that's great.
What's the story about for those who have no idea?
Okay, so it's the story of an almost 16-year-old girl called Lindsay, who comes from a wealthy but completely dysfunctional family, set in Wollongong, obviously. She's very vain and unlikable. She's a schoolyard bully, and she craves love and attention. So when she ends up falling in love with one of her school teachers, who happens to be a very sexy PE teacher, she thinks life is about to change for the better. Well, it certainly does change, but I don't want to give away too much of the plot line, but just to say that Lindsay learns some life lessons the very hard way. And she also becomes embroiled in a true-life Australian scandal. It was the forced adoption scandal, for which the Prime Minister in 2013, I don't know if you recall, probably, Julia Gillard made a public apology in Canberra. So the whole story deals very much with social and domestic issues of those times. And I do think and hope that Lindsay becomes a likeable character by the end of the story, thankfully.
Well, I did like her at the end of the story, and
Oh, that's good.
I genuinely did like her. And I mean, she had it so tough.
True.
And I can't talk about too much because I don't want to give too much away. But I didn't, because I didn't know much about the book before I got it. I had no idea where it was going to go. And when she met the PE teacher, and then the next chapter was like, oh my goodness, I just did not see that coming.
That's good. I'm glad. It's nice sometimes, isn't it, to dive into a book not knowing anything about it.
Now, Liz, you've been living in France for 2 decades. Why do you feature Wollongong in many of your stories?
Well, I'd written 3 historical novels before these 2 Australian ones, and they were all set in rural France, in a village loosely based on the village in which I live. And then I felt I needed a break from that, and decided to revisit 1970s Wollongong. Maybe I was a bit homesick, I don't know. But I'd actually written The Silent Kookaburra years before, the French novels. It was the first book I ever wrote.
Oh, really? Wow.
But there was something wrong with it, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was, so I just put it away in a drawer, and then 10 years later, the answer just popped into my head about how I thought it could be rewritten. So that was rewritten fairly quickly, and I really loved writing it, even though it can be quite dark in parts. And I wanted to continue the 70s Wollongong theme in another book, hence The Swooping Magpie. And I think the next book will also be set in that same time and place, 70s Wollongong. So I do like to deal with social issues and things that people remember, things that might have affected people adversely or otherwise, and just to try maybe tackle a few themes that some authors wouldn't. And, see where it goes.
Now, look, I couldn't help but laugh when Lindsay, who's, of course, the lead in the novel, she spoke with excitement about her new crocheted green bikinis. And I've got to know, are these something you used to wear at one of Wollongong's beaches in the days?
Oh, we certainly did. We loved our crocheted bikinis. You had to have one, otherwise you couldn't go to the beach.
Sounds like it. Did you knit them yourself? Did you crochet them yourself?
I don't think we were quite adept. I think we bought them, if I remember. I think I had a go once, but it just didn't look anything like a bikini.
I reckon if you were going to crochet yourself a bikini, you'd have to be pretty confident you got all those stitches intact.
It certainly would.
It could go completely the wrong way, I reckon.
Oh gosh, could be a disaster.
Now, Liz, look, one aspect of your story that I really enjoyed were the descriptions of the area, and as someone who knows Wollongong quite well, I could picture exactly what you were talking about, despite it being set 30 years ago. And look, if you don't mind, I'd love just to read a very small snippet from your story. Yeah. Okay. It says, once away from the Sydney bustle, dense bushland stretched along the Prince's Highway down to Wollongong. The spring day was sunny, not too hot, not too cold, just right. The sky a startling cloudless blue, the Pacific Ocean waves rolling onto the shore in perfect curls as we drove down Bulli Pass and into Wollongong. Now, does that imagery, does that just come from memory, or do you create that on the fly as you write?
Oh, definitely. All the imagery comes from memory, Steve.
Yep, okay.
All the sights, smells and sounds, they're all locked away in there, in the brain. And I actually need to see, or have seen in my mind, a scene before I can write it. So I would just, remember how it was. And but I actually do come back here pretty much every year. So the memories are refreshed about the descriptions and the smells and the birds and everything. I do get to see it again every year, which really helps, I think.
I think for many of us too, that travel to Sydney then back again, there is that special moment, isn't it, at the top of Bulli Pass where you look right out across Wollongong. I remember as a kid, like when we were driving back with my grandparents at night time, and Mum would used to call it Fairy City because you'd look at all the lights and they would be twinkling in the distance. It was just beautiful.
Yeah, I have exactly that memory as well.
Wow, yep. So you've caught it so well.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I kind of like doing descriptions, so let's hope I don't overdo them.
No, bring them on. Now, look, Lisa, we're just about our time, unfortunately, and I'm keen to know, you've been chatting about writing some more books. Are there any stories in the pipeline that are going to feature the Shoalhaven? We're only an hour south of you.
Oh, well, that's a shame because I don't really know the Shoalhaven too well. So, but I know Wollongong really well, and I was thinking that I should probably continue the Wollongong theme since, there's already been 2. But you never know. One day it could be the Shoalhaven because I think it's a beautiful area and, we're thinking of maybe retiring down there in a few years.
Lovely.
So then I definitely would.
All right. Well, I know you'll have plenty of inspiration down here, that's for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. It's so lovely.
Well, look, Lisa, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Tuesday Drive this afternoon. Please enjoy the rest of your time in the Illawarra. If you've got a chance, you've got to come down and experience one of our gorgeous beaches down here. Great.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Steve. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Lisa. That's Liza Perrat, a French-based but Wollongong-bred author. And if you can't find the novel at the library, don't despair, as all major online bookstores feature it, and you can download it in a flash. And stick with me, and I'll let you know how you can win your very own copy of The Swooping Magpie by Liza Perrat. This is Tuesday Drive, where the time is 16 minutes to 6. Lovely to have your company on this New Year's Day 2019.